G'day, Paul from Polyman Astro here, and welcome to another episode of Drizzled. This is a series where I take a closer look at one of my images and hopefully find some hidden gems. The idea is to inspire you to take a closer look at your images. If you haven't seen any of my previous episodes of Drizzled, I'll put a link in the description below. Let's dive in. So it must have been about 25 years ago, or thereabouts, that I first read The Lord of the Rings. And as a young kid with arachnophobia, when they got to Shelob's Lair, I did not enjoy reading that part. I had goosebumps, I had clammy palms, which when you're reading a paperback book is not a great idea. Even to this day, I'm an arachnophobe, and that particular part of the books scares me. And the movies did not help. So you're probably wondering, why am I telling you about my reading of The Lord of the Rings? Well, hopefully the title of the Drizzled episode has given that away. I've called it Shelob's Lair. So let's set the scene a little bit. We're going to be looking at the Large Magellanic Cloud, and we might do this over a few Drizzled episodes. The Large Magellanic Cloud is a satellite galaxy of our own, the Milky Way. It's a southern hemisphere object, not too far away from the South Celestial Pole. And if your skies are fairly dark, you should be able to see it with your naked eye. On the background here you can see a time-lapse, which I took with a 16mm lens from Waroona, the Astronomical Society of New South Wales' dark sky site, just before we went back into lockdown, so good timing there. It's a beautifully rich region of space with all sorts of nebulosity all over the place, and it's a great target because, as you can see, it can be done with extremely wide angle lenses on a tracker, right through to professional astronomy gear, including Hubble. So it's such a versatile area for astrophotography, a beautiful area, rich in nebulosity. The nebula that we're going to be looking at today in particular is the Tarantula Nebula. This is a nebula that is so large and so bright that if it was as close to us as Orion, we'd see it in the daytime, and it would take up a huge region of the night sky. It is that big. And it's not even the biggest nebula in our local group. There are bigger. So the first time I probably looked at this region with my first telescope, I was a teenager. So I'd read The Lord of the Rings a few years prior. So something called the Tarantula Nebula both scared me and fascinated me at the same time. I've always been kind of an ambivalent arachnophobe. I both love and hate them at the same time. You'll often catch me walking towards a particularly interesting looking spider, and then when it moves I'll run away screaming. It's a bit odd, but that's a phobia for you. So anyway, looking at it through my first telescope, which was a tiny cheap looking achromat, not the best thing in the world, finding it was hard enough with that thing, but my skies, I was in the Blue Mountains, so the skies were at least dark enough I could see it with my naked eye and zero in on it. And I remember first seeing it through those cheap, nasty little eyepieces, and it blew me away. It's just this ethereal silver looking object that really does look like a little spider sitting there in the inky blackness of space. It was amazing. And I said, now 20 odd years later, I still remember it, that first viewing. Maybe 5 years after that, I got a better quality 8-inch Newtonian on a equatorial mount, hand driven, no drives or anything back then, and through the 8-inch it was amazing. So much more detail, but that ethereal silver glow on that inky black background was it's something that's going to be with me forever, that kind of feeling. So in 2018, when I first really started astrophotography, I really wanted to capture the feeling I had when I was a kid seeing it, that ethereal glow, but also I wanted to capture the emotion from the book, Shelob's Lair. I knew there's this spider there, and from seeing other people's images, I knew there was much more nebulosity to it than I could see with the naked eye, and I wanted to tell that story of a spider sitting in a web, just waiting for that next meal. And the fear and anticipation and that just feeling of being trapped inside Shelob's lair. I wanted to capture that in my image. I'm not sure I've succeeded. I guess you guys are going to be the judge on that. So let's take a look.
Okay, so here is Shelob's Lair, my wide field image of the region around the Tarantula Nebula. So this is the tarantula here, Shelob, and around her I can see, at least in my eyes, this fainter reddy brown nebulosity, which I see as her web, and within it she's got old meals that she's had wrapped up and pretty much finished, some fresher meals here that she's only just captured and wrapped up, one of which to me looks like a scorpion, this one looks like a snail. And she's lying here in wait, ready for this bug here to make its way into her web so that she can capture it and wrap it up as a meal as well. So that's the way I see the image. Let's take a closer dive in and see what we can see. The Tarantula Nebula itself is known as 30 Doradus, and it's a designation that is for the whole of the nebula. Whereas the star cluster in the middle that lights the nebula is known as NGC 2070. So if we zoom in here, we can see NGC 2070 just in here. And I assume this brighter region here, that's not a single star, that's the particularly dense and bright cluster kind of within a cluster called R136. It has some incredibly luminous, incredibly large, bright stars in there, and they're responsible for lighting the whole nebula. One of those stars, R136a, is, from what I understand, the second most luminous object we know, or the second most luminous star that we know of. Just down from NGC 2070 is NGC 2060, which is just in this region here. And if we zoom in here, there is, in this kind of general area, a past supernova remnant from about 5,000 years ago. To my eyes, it definitely looks like some sort of hourglass nebulosity here, and you can see all this red dust here that's been sent out from that supernova. Which is known as, I think, N157b, supernova remnant N157b. And just down from that, I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it's down in this kind of region down here, is where the supernova in 1987 occurred. It's so recent that the nebula is so small that an amateur telescope's never going to see it. You still need something like Hubble to be able to see it. But I mean, to my eyes, interestingly, there looks like there's another kind of spherical ball-shaped object here, a bubble that might be a past supernova remnant as well. So it's a very active region, the nebula. The Tarantula Nebula itself, as I said earlier, is so big that if it was as close to us as the Orion Nebula, it would take up a huge portion of the sky. It's, from my rough calculations, it's more than 70 times the size of the Orion Nebula, and its luminosity would be such that we could see it in the daytime. So that's quite amazing. This object here, which in my Shelob's Lair story I kind of think of as a scorpion, it definitely looks like a scorpion to me, it's known as the seahorse. I guess if it was upside down, it would look more like a seahorse, the tail of the seahorse here. And this object here I definitely think looks like a snail and fits the story nicely. And these star clusters here are known as NGC 2081 and 2074 down here. And then there's spattered about in here some of the NGCs in the mid-2080s as well. So it's a fascinating region, particularly, I guess, in terms of how much nebulosity, faint nebulosity there is, and a lot of it is kind of all this intermingled supernova remnants from all these stars that have been blowing up over time. And I guess with a nebula that's so large and luminous, and with huge star clusters inside it, like R136 here, it's unsurprising that there's so much supernova activity happening here. So hopefully you can take a look around your image and see what you could see. Maybe you've got more information about particularly this object. Where's it gone? Down here somewhere. Here it is, this shell down here. If you've got any more information about this, I'd love to hear about it. If you know more details about exactly which parts of this are N157b, I assume it's all this red dust here, it is the supernova shell. I do understand that this dark region here is kind of some dark dust that's out the front of the supernova that's being compressed, and it will probably form into a star forming region at some point. But if you know exactly which bit is the supernova remnant, by all means let me know, and hopefully it'll give you the feeling to look around your image and see what it is you can find in your Shelob's Lair version.
Alright, so that brings us to the end of another episode of Drizzled. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider pressing the like button below. And if you'd like to see more content like this and you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing. Of course, as always, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram using the Polyman Astro handle. Thanks for watching.